All right. The rate cut yesterday, important. No question about it. The rate cut yesterday, important. The stock market went up, what, 400 or 500 points. Bam. I think it's 500 points. Rocketed right up, as you can imagine. The price of gasoline across this country continues to come down. The national average, $2.94. $2.94. Patrick Gleason is Americans for Tax Reform VP for State Affairs. He joins me now. Patrick, thank you for being here.
Great to be with you, Steve.
The Democrats have embraced this word affordability. Everything else failed for them. I mean, Obamacare is a failure. The 43 days of government shutdown, failure. The border, trying to defend the defenseless, failure. So they're going to this saying, it's Donald Trump's fault you can't afford anything. It wasn't Donald Trump in office when inflation was 9.1% a couple of years ago. And in fact, groceries are still going up. But since Donald Trump took office, groceries have gone up 1.2%. Inflation is below 3%. Gasoline for two-thirds of the country below $3 a gallon. Some places it's below $2. Places like Oklahoma and Texas, some stations there. I mean, we're on the right track here, aren't we?
We are, and also one thing we're going to be talking about a lot heading into next year's election is all the good that was done from the big, beautiful bill, the big tax bill that the president signed on July 4th. That did a lot of good things, aside from ensuring that all Americans don't get hit with personal income tax rate hikes at the end of this year. And in addition to ensuring that, it also brought a lot of very beneficial economic growth inducing corporate and business tax relief that's going to be taking effect this year. We had the lower 21% corporate rate that was part of the first Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that President signed in his first term. That was already made permanent, so we didn't have to worry about that going away like the personal income tax rate reductions we did. But one thing they did make permanent this year was the expensing provisions. So now businesses, employers can write off in year one most capital expenditures, R&D expenditures, and what this is going to do is this is going to translate into higher job creating capacity for employers, greater capacity for increasing pay for workers, hiring new workers, expanding their operations. So, not only are a lot of trends and metrics indicating that they're heading in the right direction, but the Trump administration and policymakers in Congress have taken a number of actions this year that will help continue push things in the right direction in terms of growing the economy, job creation, income tax growth.
Now, one of the big conversations, it's not just the federal level, this is more at the state level, but I think it's important because it's happening. Here in Michigan, there's a grassroots movement to end property taxes. It's probably going to end up on the ballot next year. We'll see if they get the signatures. I know they're close to getting the signatures they need. axmitax.org if you're in Michigan. But I just heard Ron DeSantis talk about this as well. You see, when you pay off your mortgage and you're on a fixed income and you're retired, and they continue to jack up your property taxes so the government can take your property, that just does not sit well with a lot of folks, does it?
That's one of the hotter topics these days, in addition to what Governor DeSantis is pushing in Florida, wanting to do a phase out of property taxes in the form of a constitutional amendment next year. Governor Greg Abbott just rolled out a property tax relief and limitation package, 6-pillar package that would limit the growth in local spending, which at the end of the day, it's local spending that is driving the property tax burdens. Would also cap property taxes so they cannot grow beyond a certain rate annually. Would also subject any increases to voter approval. So he's going to run on that in Texas, likely implement it if he's successful. So we're seeing actually just this week, the Speaker of the House of North Carolina convened a commission of legislators who's going to come up with a number of proposals to limit property taxes. So that's one of the newer trends that's emerged in the past year. But that is in addition to one of the more long-standing trends of at least the past decade, which is the push to phase down state income taxes and even to phase out state income taxes. We saw Gretchen Whitmer, she fought the income tax that was triggered by her predecessor, and she saw it with that novel maneuver to undo that. Meanwhile, her competing states across the country, particularly red states, aren't just driving down their income taxes and flattening them, they're pushing them to zero. North Carolina, they're going to have another income tax cut take effect on January 1st, as is South Carolina, a number of other states.
It's interesting you say all that, because I just sit here, Patrick, and think to myself, I live in the only state in America, the only one where income tax went up last year. The only one. Congratulations to the people and the Democrats running Michigan, because you pushed up our income tax. Other states that have no income tax, Tennessee, Florida, New Hampshire, wherever, all do better. They all do better. They attract business. They attract investment. They attract people. Not here. We want nothing to do with that here, apparently. Makes no
Well,
sense to me.
it's extremely bad news for Michigan. The good news is Michigan is an outlier. Hopefully, there'll be some corrective action. It's probably going to take an election to do that. But
Sure.
Michigan is an outlier in this respect. And you talk about affordability that Democrats are talking about. In the states, the blue states where Democrats implement their agenda, those are the least affordable states. And they're also the states where people are leaving in droves. They're the states that are losing the most population. And the places that are gaining the most population are the red states, the states that already have lower taxes and are continuing to drive them down further. And I'd point out, while the dominant trend of the last decade has been the push of states to join the club of no income tax states, even the states that already have no income tax, those 8 states, you mentioned Florida, I mentioned Texas, also Tennessee, other no income tax states, they're still finding other taxes to cut, other ways to make their codes more competitive. So, Michigan is an outlier.
Yeah, it's too
And
bad.
not only are other states more competitive, they're increasing their advantage.
That's right. And how can, one of the things about this country and the way it was put together with individual states having, their sovereignty, was that one state could look at another state and say, oh, that works really well. We should try that. Best practices, right? And yet somehow it gets lost. That's you look at Tennessee, it's booming, absolutely booming. You look at Florida, hello. And then you look at Michigan and other high tax states like Illinois or California. Not the same, is it?
No, and Steve, another area where Governor Whitmer has made Michigan an outlier, it's not just on the income tax side, also with the right to work. On doing that,
First time
that's one of the
ever.
areas. Yeah, we've seen tremendous growth. We went from 22 to 27, went back to 26 with the loss of Michigan, but still tremendous growth in the number of right to work states, most states now. So Michigan's an outlier. Hopefully, again, we can get corrective action after an election cycle.
It's going to take a shift, that's for sure, in the midterm elections. Look, and here's the other thing. Democrats desperate to hang on to Michigan. I believe Michigan is ground zero for the midterms and for the presidential election in 2028. The prediction out of Virginia, where these agencies are that fund all this political spending, is $950 million is going to be spent in Michigan in 2026 for the midterm elections. Almost $1 billion. I mean, it's unbelievable the amount of money, outside money, that will come in to try to buy a Senate seat or try to buy the governor's mansion or try to buy whatever they can. Congressional seats, all of it. It's remarkable. I'll give you the last word, Patrick.
Yeah, well, it's going to be a challenge for voters to keep up with. You mentioned all that spending. There's going to be a lot of ads and attention on federal and national races, but there's also tons of important state and local races to keep in touch with, to stay attuned to. So we encourage folks, check out atr.org. Also, if you go to atr.org/Michigan, you can see how the tax cuts recently enacted by Congress and President Trump, how those are benefiting Michigan. So check that out, atr.org/Michigan.
Thank you very much. Greatly appreciated. Patrick Gleason, Americans for Tax Reform, VP for State Affairs, and we need to get our state in order. Patrick, thank you.
Take care.
All right, when we come back, the best part of the program, of course, is Ivy. She pointed something out to me about this whole Sharon Moore fiasco. She said he burned down his entire house for lust. He has a wife and 3 kids. He couldn't control his lust, and so therefore the whole thing comes crashing down. How sad. That and Tyler Robinson making his first court appearance. He is the alleged assassin of Charlie Kirk. We'll make an in-court appearance today. We'll talk about it with Ivy next.